Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Achieving Minerva, the podcast. I'm your host, Sal. If you like what you've been hearing, please go ahead and subscribe and tell all your friends about this podcast. I also have a blog at achievingminerva.com, and I'm also on Twitter. Feel free to engage me. I'm at Minerva Fire. That's MINVERAFIRE. I'll be happy to engage with you guys. So today we're going to talk about what to do with money for kids. Perhaps it's from grandparents that want to help out, or you're wanting to save for college for your kids. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. This is a little bit more of a math-heavy, financial-heavy episode. We don't often go into the weeds of the finances, but today we're going to get a little bit deeper into it and kind of share with you kind of my thoughts on saving for college. Or saving for kids' futures and things like that. So my kids are very fortunate to have four living grandparents, both sets still married, and both sets fairly well off. And so that's a very fortunate thing for me and my wife, as well as my kids. That's not really a burden that we really foresee we will have to bear, is helping support financially, at least, our parents. So that's good on them. But now they're kind of to the point where they want to start giving back to us and to their grandchildren and make sure that their life is set up in a way that they think is adequate. So they give a little bit of money to our children, and our children are still babies. So we're not really going to give them all this money in these sums, but we do tuck it away. We do respect their wishes that this money is for them. So we're going to go over a little bit about what we do and a little bit about what the options are. Okay, so the big expense for kids that a lot of parents really want to achieve for their kids is paying for college. And we are no different. Graduating with a bachelor's degree, both me and my wife, both debt-free, that alone has been the biggest boost in our financial journey as a married couple. And it probably would have been also individually. This is a topic that's in the news a lot with the tuition forgiveness. We are big proponents of that. We believe that is just a huge lift. There's a lot of stuff on both sides. We're not here to get political. So the classic thing is to set up a education safety savings account, which is often called a 529. Okay, these are usually managed by different states, but you don't always have to be a resident of the state of the plan that you like. Okay, so as a big example, if you go to Vanguard's 529 site, they service quite a few states, but their most prominent one is for the state of Nevada. But you don't have to be a resident of Nevada to benefit from this plan. You go to Vanguard, you can still open an account even if you live somewhere else. The benefit of that is that you get to invest in Vanguard funds, their index funds, or a select few managed portfolios that Vanguard has. It's much like setting up an IRA with them or a 401k if that's where your employer uses your 401k. You have all the Vanguard suite of index funds, which is very beneficial. Low ratio cost ratios. And from what I could tell on the website, there was not a minimum yearly contribution, or I'm sorry, a maximum contribution, but there is a minimum contribution. If you live outside of the state of Nevada, it's going to be $3,000. And if you are within the state of Nevada, you can invest just $1,000 initially. And the maximum contribution for this plan is $500,000. Okay, and the 529 generally only gets one beneficiary at a time. Okay, so you have one kid, you put the beneficiary in their name. So you're managing this account, and when it's time to use it for college, that person is the only person you can use these funds for. You can transfer beneficiaries to, say, a younger kid if your oldest kid either doesn't go to college, gets a scholarship, or something like that. You can send it down to your next kid. There's a little bit of paperwork involved, but you can do that. However, a lot of people have kids that are 1, 2, or 3 years apart, and it generally takes 4 years to go to college. So you're going to want 2 different accounts for those 2 kids. If you have if you have a large age range, you have one kid that's 12 and another kid that's just being born, maybe you could probably get away with that then if you just keep that same account that you had for the 12-year-old if you've already started it. But if you're just starting for both kids, you're going to want 2 different accounts, or at least that would be my advice if you're going to go the 529 route. Now, Vanguard's just one manager. Fidelity is also a big one. I use Fidelity for all of my accounts, and that's only because my first job had a 401k there, and I liked it. It seemed to be very comparable to Vanguard and Schwab, and it's generally in that tier of 3 that's commonly recommended because of the low fees. So I just kept everything at Fidelity. It has nothing to do with they're sponsoring me or anything like that. That's just where all my money is. Vanguard is also highly touted. Charles Schwab website is also highly touted. There are some other ones, Betterment and things like that, but I use Fidelity. That's where all of my accounts are, my investment accounts. So Fidelity has services several states. They service Arizona, New Hampshire, Delaware, and they all have generally similar rules. The main thing that using one from your state might give you is some state tax deductions. Okay, so if you don't live in Nevada, you want to use Vanguard's Nevada 529, you can do that. You may be missing out on some state tax deductions. You'll have to decide if that's worth it. But for example, the Fidelity Arizona account, there wasn't a minimum initial contribution. The maximum contribution overall was $531,000. So very similar to the $500,000 for the Vanguard Nevada 529. Now, we're going to put that into context a little bit. $500,000 for college is a lot of money. And your kid is going to have to, if you can achieve that, if you are fortunate enough to be able to put $500,000 away just for college, your kid can go anywhere in the United States and probably anywhere in the world. And we're going to go through a couple scenarios there. Just be advised that these funds can only be used for qualified education expenses. So tuition, books, room and board if it's to the school. It's a little bit more of a gray area if you're paying for off-campus housing. You can only do that with this account while they're in school at least half time. So while they're at least going, I believe it's 6 credit hours per semester for undergrad students. You can only food if it's with the university meal plan. Basically, if you're paying the school, the institution, you could easily call it a education qualified expense. If you're just giving your child money during school, that's going to be harder to address on your tax returns. That doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means that it's going to be a little bit more paperwork, a little more hoops to jump through should you be audited. Now, it should be noted that most people are, first of all, not able to, and second of all, do not need $500,000 of just the contributions of $500,000 in order to go to college adequately without taking out loans or anything. I did a little bit of math. This is based on 7% market returns over the course of 18 years. So if you start this when your child is born, you can't do this before they're born because you need their social security number and their name in order to be a beneficiary. Then they're going to go to college at 18. So if you put $1,000 in starting year 1 all the way to 18, assuming 7% market returns. That's assuming 10% plus accounting for 3% inflation. I know 2022 is a different animal, but I am confident it's not going to be at 9% forever. Okay, over the course, 20 years is a long time. Okay, from now to 20 years, that's a long time. Historical average is 3%. Market returns historical average for S&P 500 and other big indices are 10%. So we account for those two and make it 7%. If you put $1,000 in the account every year from now until they're 18, that's $18,000 total contribution. It should grow using an index fund to $36,157.85. If you want to get done with putting this money away quicker, let's say you put $5,000 away for the first 6 years of their life until they start kindergarten. So that's $5,000 for 6 years. That's $30,000 that you've contributed. That should grow, even if you stop in year 7, it should grow to $85,086.02. Now that's plenty to go to college in most scenarios. Okay. I live in North Carolina, so I'm using the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill as my benchmark. There's a lot of state schools here, but UNC is the big one, so I'm going to use that. For in-state tuition, right now in the year 2022, $3,500 for 12 unit hours, plus $1,000 of fees, so that's $45,000 per semester. If we multiply that by 8, it takes about $36,000 to get a 4-year degree at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill in 2022. So the first scenario, putting $1,000 in every year, gets us right to $36,000. That's a little bit close for my comfort, but we're all financially independent people or financially independently minded people anyway. So hopefully we are well above that, and we should be able to foot the bill anyway. Not everybody wants to go to an in-state school. Some people want their kid to be able to do whatever they want. So I used neighboring Duke for a private scenario. At Duke, it costs about $30,000 per year to go to Duke University. That's just tuition. Room and board and food, had a bunch of other different options, but this is just tuition. Let's say I'll help them get an apartment in Durham there. So 30,000 times 4, that's $120,000 in order to go to a private university. Now, Duke's pretty on par with a lot of the private institutions. It may not be quite as high as Harvard or Yale, some of those Northeastern Ivy League schools, but Duke is pretty up there, such that I'm comfortable using them as a benchmark for the private scenario. So you're not going to have enough if you do the $5,000 scenario, but if you put just a little bit more or keep going on your $5,000 for another couple years, then you'll be golden with 120 if you just keep putting the $5,000 in there. Here's the downside with the 529s, the education spending accounts. You can only spend this on education qualified expenses, like we covered earlier. If you don't do that, if your kid doesn't go to college, if your kid decides to go a cheaper route, which there are, and we'll discuss that, you can go to community college and knock the first 2 years of college out for pennies on the dollar compared to the 4-year schools. You can get a college degree for less than $30,000. You can do that, and it's not that uncommon. If you don't use this money on those expenses, you are subject to a 10% penalty. So if all of your kids leave the nest, now you're stuck with an extra $20,000 that if you want to use it for anything, you're going to have to pay 10% on that. Or I guess you could save it, keep it there, and then transfer the beneficiary to a grandchild in the future. So here's what our mindset is. Our mindset is that our money is best served if it's ours to do whatever we want with it. That's the whole point of being financially free, right? And being free to make these choices. That's the whole point of this whole exercise, is so that we can do what we want with our money. Putting this into a 529 paints you into a box of education only. And there's a lot of factors that are going to go on. Our kids are very young. The whole education landscape could change in the next 20 years. It has changed in the 30 some odd years that I've been alive. It changed from my parents to my generation. So there's a lot of things that can change that you have to account for if that's the route that you're going to go. So what we're doing is we're going to use our own investments in order to pay for college. If we look at each of our accounts, both of our Roth IRAs, my 401k, and our taxable brokerage right this second, we already have enough in each of those accounts to pay for one college degree. So in 20 years, we're going to have enough that we can help foot the bill and get our kid through college debt-free. Now, that also accounts for if he gets a scholarship, then we don't have to worry about this math on how do we get this 529 money out without penalties. We get to help with apartments or books, or help get a job, or unpaid internships, or anything like that. So we get a lot of freedom by keeping the money as ours. The other thing that this does is anything that's in a 529 shows up on a FAFSA. So if somehow you are tax savvy and you can manipulate what your income looks like, the 529 still counts for your expected family contribution to the institution. If you are going to just earmark your Roth IRA money for that, that is your money and is not expected for you to be using for your child's tuition. It does not show up on the FAFSA. Neither does a 401k. So you can manipulate those accounts a little bit if you're going to go that route. What we did with the little bit of money that grandparents have already started giving our child is we opened a UGMA/UTMA account with Fidelity. It's a custodial account. Basically, this money belongs to our child. We can invest it with Fidelity funds. We manage it, and when our child is between the age of 18 and 25, we have to transfer those assets to him to do with as he likes. He can use them if we allow him before that. He can use that money for whatever he likes before that date, but at some point, this money does have to become his. So we have told the grandparents that that's what we've done, and that we will be splitting various birthday checks and things like that between that account and then our account to help with college, as is their wish. But things that we have plans on to use this account for Junior is, first of all, financial education. That's something that we felt we were lacking when we were younger from our parents, as well as our parents are. We do not feel like they did a great job educating us on how to become that way ourselves. So we plan on using it to demonstrate how your money can multiply, can compound when he's a little bit older and able to deal with that. We also plan on using it for the future car. When he is about 10, 12, 13, we plan on telling him, hey, you're going to want a car when you're 16. And we are not paying for that car by ourselves. We expect you to foot a little bit of the bill. We will match whatever. We don't actually know exactly everything that we're going to do when that time comes. But this money is going to be what we match what he comes for. So if he goes and gets a job mowing lawns, doing yard work, doing all of his chores, things like that, and he comes to us when he's 16 and says, I have $7,000. Will you match it so I can buy a $14,000 used car? Absolutely. We plan on using some of this money that's in this custodial account for that. And we will be forthright about that when that time comes. We also plan on using it for perhaps a future wedding gift or other big time gifts. If he wants to backpack across Europe or whatever, that will be kind of what this is for until it becomes his between the ages of 18 and 25. And hopefully we've educated him enough by that point that he's not just going to flush it down the toilet. So that's what we plan to do. As far as the college and tuition, we plan on using our investments. We have our portfolios that are strong enough, we believe, that it will be able to cover what the future brings. So that's kind of what we're doing as far as all this. That was a very a little bit more math and money heavy episode. That is not super common here, but we do talk about that. We want freedom, right? We want financial freedom. We want practical freedom in order to do what we want for our family and our kids. Thanks for listening. See you. Hopefully you'll be here next time. Please hit the subscribe button and visit the blog, achievingminerva.com. Engage Minerva Fire.